What else should we be thinking about in setting ourselves up to win with our big goals? And how should we set these goals? You mentioned you shouldn't think about the SMART goals. What should we be thinking about on how to set our goals and dreams for our life?
Yeah, so goals are tricky. I would say that, there's nothing inherently wrong with the SMART goals technique, et cetera. Well, there is definitely a lot wrong with the visioning of, this is what I let me sit here and make a vision board and a mood board about like my 5-year plan. My best piece of advice is, let's just start with tomorrow. Okay, let's just start with tomorrow, as opposed to, what do I want to do in 5 years and my vision board and my mood board and all that stuff. How would the person you want to become, again, it's about living according to your values, and nobody can tell you what your values are. How would the person you want to become spend their time? And by blocking out that time to say, you know what? Yes, I have a dream that someday I'll write a novel. I have a dream that I'll get my PhD. I'll get a dream that I'll have a successful business. Okay, but how much time are you going to invest in that? And knowing that constraint of the same 24 hours with everything else that you want to do and that you dream of forces you to prioritize. And that is essential. Consistency over intensity. That is essential to getting to that long-term goal, is to work on it day or over day after day after day. Relentless forward momentum. This is how we accomplish these big goals, not just dreaming about them. The only metric of success from now on for you should be one thing. Did I do what I said I would do without distraction? That's it. That's all you got to do. It's not about finishing anything. It's not about finishing anything. Because when you say to yourself in your calendar, I am going to sit at my desk and work on my book, as you said, Lewis, right? For 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it is you say you want to do. I don't care how long you work on it, whatever you said you're going to do. That technique has been shown. This is called making an implementation intention, which is just a fancy way psychologists call planning out what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. That technique has been shown to be more effective. Here's the kicker. The people who do that actually finish more. They actually get more done than the people who use the to-do list technique.
It's kind of like saying, okay, I'm not going to go run for an hour today, but I'm going to put my shoes on and I'm going to go outside and I'm going to start the run for 2 minutes. And I'm just going to do that every day. But by saying, okay, I'm going to schedule this for 10 minutes or whatever, then you typically want to do more because you're already in the flow.
Right. It's a little bit more than tiny steps. It's actually saying for that period of time. So I respect the, just get started technique. Very nice. But it's the don't stop technique.
Got it.
It's more than just get
so
started.
Don't get just started. Right? Go for 30 minutes. Go for the time you scheduled in your calendar.
Right. Don't say, I'm going to run a 7:30 or whatever. Say, I am going to walk for 30 minutes and I'm not going to do anything else that might take me away from working on this thing for 30 minutes in my life. Okay? I'm going to be with my child without distraction for 1 hour. That's all I'm going to do. I am going to check email and do nothing but flush through my email inbox for 15 minutes without doing anything else. I am going to read a book and nothing else for 20 minutes. That is all you need to do to measure yourself. Don't worry about, will I finish the book? Will I get to inbox 0? Will I have a beautiful relationship with my child? Will I ever, be in good physical fitness? Don't worry about the end goals. Worry about, did you put in the time to work on the task you wanted to work on without distraction? That's your only metric of success.
And what happens to our self-confidence or the belief in ourselves when we constantly let ourselves down with this process of not doing what we say we want to do?
Right. So if you run your life on a to-do list and you don't finish what you said you're going to do, which barely anybody with a to-do list actually, who runs a life with a to-do list actually does, you're reinforcing a negative self-image of another day went by and here I go. I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Look, I still got all these things that I didn't get to. What a loser. As opposed to when you measure yourself based on this only metric of, did I do what I said I was going to do for as long as I said I would without distraction, you are a winner with every time box.
Being your word. Yeah, it doesn't matter the result you get. It's just that I was my word today. I was my word. And what I said I was going to do, I did it. And that builds a better self-image and self-confidence with self, right?
Bingo. So being indistractable, first and foremost, is about personal integrity. It's about being as honest with yourself as you are with other people, right? We all know that we wouldn't want to be a liar. Being called a liar is one of the worst insults anybody could say to you, right? You wouldn't want to lie to your friends, to your family, to your coworkers. And yet we lie to ourselves every day, right? Oh, I'm definitely going to go work out. No, you didn't. I'm definitely going to eat right. Nah. I'm definitely going to be fully present with the people I love. Not really. We lie to ourselves, and that takes a huge psychic toll on our self-image, and we don't even realize it until it's too late. And that's when people start concocting all these ridiculous ideas. Oh, I have a short attention span, or I'm bad with time management, or hey, you know what? I probably need some kind of diagnosis. It's all ridiculous. For the vast majority of people, there's nothing wrong with them, right? They just reinforce this crappy self-image of someone who's incapable when they are perfectly capable if they had the right techniques.
How much does self-confidence or believing in yourself matter in terms of accomplishing the goals we set out for ourselves? Is it, if we have a low self-esteem and low self-confidence, do you believe that we can still accomplish the goals and dreams that we have? Or do we really need to start building confidence and belief in our actions and in who we are with those actions in order to accomplish those goals?
Yeah, so this is where the psychology of agency comes into play, that believing that you can do something is incredibly empowering. The question, of course, is, well, how do I get that belief? And where most people go wrong is that they have these big, hairy goals, right? We've all heard about, oh, you have to have a specific, measurable, actionable, the SMART goals and all that stuff. And it turns out that the literature around, this is another one of these areas that we've seen, the pop psychology is so off base, right? One of the most popular things that you hear these days around goals is that you have to have visioning. Let's all sit down and make a 5-year plan and a visioning board, right? So that we can envision what we want. And it turns out that studies show that people who do this are shooting themselves in the foot.
Wow.
That we know that studies find that thinking to yourself, oh, I want that beach body, is pretty much the worst thing you can do if you really do want that beach body.
Really? What should you do instead?
Here's the difference. There's a good visioning and bad visioning. Bad visioning is envision your, this bullshit, that comes from this idea of The Secret, right? The law of attraction, that, envision yourself wealthy, envision yourself being in love, envisioning yourself being in good physical shape. Terrible. Don't do that. The good kind of visioning is not visioning the outcome, because what's happening when you envision the outcome is that you are satiating that desire. By imagining it, you are satiating it. Okay, it feels like you already got it. Instead, the good kind of visioning is to envision what you will do when something gets in the way of the actions you have to take to get that goal. So instead of thinking, oh my God,
when you're distracted, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Exactly. So instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm going to look so good with a 6-pack, instead think about, what am I going to do next time I go up with my friends and they offer me a piece of chocolate cake? Because that's the right kind of visioning.
Because envisioning this incredible result in a year or 10 years is nice in theory, but it's going to be extremely hard to get there with a big goal that you might have, a big dream, launching anything, a book, the physical body, the relationship. It's not just going to happen instantly without effort and work. So that what I'm hearing you say is to focus on, that's going to take a lot of work, time, energy. So every time I'm pulled away from that, envisioning how you're actually going to show up for yourself to support yourself in getting there.
That's right. That's right. And so that's why reimagining these internal triggers is so important. As we talked about earlier, what is the dialogue? What techniques will I have? What arrows will I have in my quiver ready to go when I am tempted with procrastination and distraction? What will I do in those times?
Is there good research on, what did you call this? Revisioning, or what did you call this?
Yeah, there is. There's actually there's an article on my blog. I can give you a link in the show notes where I talk about the difference between good visioning and bad visioning. Very, very important. Because if there's one mantra I live by and is kind of the foundation of my life now since writing this book, and I didn't used to be this way, by the way. I'm 42 years old. I used to be clinically obese.
Really?
Today I'm in the best shape of my life. I actually have a 6-pack for the first time ever. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because what I've learned is that consistency is more important than intensity. Right? Consistency over intensity in every area of your life. You want good relationships? You have to be consistently present with the people you love. You want to be great at your job. You have to consistently do the hard work that other people don't want to do. You want to have be in good physical shape. You have to consistently show up and do the workouts. It's not about the intensity. It's not about, oh, it's New Year's, I'm going to make a resolution for 5 days and then quit. It's about consistent action. And that only comes here's a really important point. It's not about knowing what to do. We become so obsessed with, oh, what's the right workout? What's the right diet? What's the right way, this, that? I better go get a book to tell me what to do. Like, let me go listen to some guru to give me all the answers. We basically all know what to do, right? And if you don't know what to do, Google it, for God's sakes. All the answers are right there, right? We basically know what to do. What we don't know how to do is how do we stop getting in our own way? The real problem is not that we don't know what to do. It's that we don't know how to stop getting distracted.
So how do we get out of our own way?
Yeah, so we went through 1.5 of the strategies. Number 1 is mastering the internal triggers. Number 2 is making time for traction, which we talked about a little bit in terms of why making a schedule is so very important. It turns out the vast majority of people don't keep any sort of a calendar. 2/3 of people don't keep a calendar. Even those who do keep a calendar typically don't do it properly. And the proper way to do it is by using what's called a time box calendar. And I show you how to do that. This technique has been around for ages. It's been around for decades. It's actually one of the most studied techniques out there. Very, very well-researched technique of planning your day. It's called making an implementation intention. But we can go beyond that too, where what I advise in the book, and this hasn't been published elsewhere, is this process of what I call schedule syncing, which is very, very important. So making time for traction is all about deciding how you want to spend your time, right? But to do that, well, the question is, well, how do I do that? How do I decide how I'm going to spend my time? And this is where a lot of people get stuck with the time boxing technique. We've all heard it, but this is why people don't do it. They don't understand that what is the first step? How do I really get started in time boxing? The first step is to start with our values, okay? Turning our values into time. So what are values? Values are attributes of the person you want to become. Let me say that again. What are values? Values are attributes of the person you want to become. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, how would the person I want to become spend their time? And we're going to ask ourselves this in 3 life domains. These 3 life domains of you're at the center of these 3 life domains, then your relationships, then your work. Most people do it in the wrong order, right? They start with their work, and only then they give whatever scraps of time are remaining to their friends, their family, and to themselves. No, we want to start with you. So we ask ourselves, how would the person I want to become spend their time investing in themselves? Now, it is not up to me or anyone else to impose their values onto you. You have to ask this of yourself. How would the person I want to become spend their time investing in themselves? So how much time would they invest in physical fitness? If that's important to you, I'm not saying it should be, but if it's important to you, is that time to go to the gym, to go on a run, to go on a walk, whatever it might be, proper nutrition, rest? Oh my God. How many of us know we have to get quality sleep? Everybody knows this. I don't need to tell you that. You've read tons of literature that says sleep is important. How many of us have a bedtime? Right? How many of us actually have on our calendar?
Yeah, scheduled.
Yes. Very few people do, right? We have to have that time scheduled because you know what you're going to do if you don't. Check Facebook for another 5 minutes. You'll watch another thing on Netflix. Yeah. Right. You've got to have that time scheduled. Now, again, if you say, the way I invest in myself is I play video games for 4 hours a day. I got no problem with that. I'm not one of these chicken little tech critics that's going to say, oh no, watching football is okay, but playing video games is bad. No, right. Ridiculous. Anything you want to do with your time is fine as long as you decide in advance. So if you say, I want time to play video games, great, but put it on your schedule. Don't do it according to the tech company's schedule. Do it according to your values and your schedule. So that's the you domain. Next comes the relationship domain. And this is a really important one. Part of the reason we have a loneliness epidemic in this country, and we know that researchers tell us that loneliness is as detrimental to our health as smoking and obesity.
Wow.
Okay, it is a real crisis right now. The reason this is happening, this is not happening because of social media. Social media is the symptom to this disease, which is that the proportion of time spent in planned social engagements in this country has been in a precipitous decline. Okay, so if you read Robert Putnam back in the 1990s, he wrote this book called Bowling Alone, right? Way back before Facebook and social media, and he documented this trend, this 50-year trend now of people spending less time in scheduled engagements with their friends. So he called it bowling alone because bowling used to be, a big social activity. You'd go to the bowling league and you'd see your friends and you'd get together every Thursday night with your buddies. And that doesn't happen like it used to, right? The secularization of the United States. Not that I'm a pretty secular person. I'm not saying people should go to church or synagogue or whatever. I'm just saying that those regular pillars of social engagement in our life for more and more people don't exist. Right? So the lack of those scheduled times for our relationships takes a deep psychological toll. So you have to ask yourself, how would the person I want to become spend time with the people they love? Okay, not giving them whatever scraps of time are left over between everything else, but actually booking that time, right? How many times we should get coffee someday. Yeah, okay, right. That's code for never, right? So having that time with your children, your family, your parents, your siblings, your best friends, having that time on your schedule. I know many of us are at home right now during COVID, got it. Maybe one of the silver linings is that people now are more proactive about scheduling those Zoom calls. I hope those will continue, right? I mean, I'm spending much more time over Zoom with my parents than I was before COVID. So scheduling that time, with your spouse, very, very important. Having that time on your calendar, say, okay, this is our time together, whether it's a regular date day, a walk time, whatever it might be, having that time scheduled and sacred for the people you love. And then finally, the last domain is the work domain. And when it comes to work, we have to realize there are two types of work, okay? There's what we call reactive work and reflective work. Reactive work is a part of everybody's job, okay? It's the phone calls, the meetings, the Slack channels. It's reacting to whatever's happening in your work environment. And that's part of the job. I get it. Some jobs, few jobs, are 100% reactive, okay? If you work in a restaurant, if you're working a call center, your job is to show up. You're not a schedule maker, you're a schedule taker, right? You take whatever schedule is given to you, you show up, you do whatever needs to get done. It's all reactive, okay? Or almost all reactive. Other jobs are almost all reflective. So if you're a software engineer, a marketing executive, a salesperson, you're not a schedule taker, you're a schedule maker. You have to sit down and say, wait a minute, how will I plan my day? How should I spend my time? And you have a tough job because your most important job is to figure out how to spend your time. What most people do is they take the easy default. The easy default is, I'll just take whatever comes to me. They think they're working in a reactive job, but really they're working in a reflective job. And those are the kind of people who suck at their jobs, right? Why? If you want a competitive advantage, if you want to be better than everyone else in your field, let me give you a little secret, okay? That no one else is doing. Think. Make time to actually sit and think in your day. You know why? Because nobody else is doing it. I promise you, almost nobody.
Yeah, they're reacting.
Exactly. They're constantly reacting. But look, to plan, to strategize, to think ahead, you have to sit down without distraction and make some time to be with yourself in your own head to figure out what to do next, right? You have to prioritize. That takes time to think without distraction. So I implore everyone, if your job requires some level of reflection, which almost everyone's job does, give yourself that 30 minutes, 45 minutes, heck, an hour a day to work without distraction and put it on your calendar and keep it sacred. Okay, so now we have these three life domains. We have our time box calendar. The final step is to do what we call a schedule sync. And this is what's been missing, I think, from everyone else who's been taught, espouses this technique of time boxing, and it's been around for decades and decades, is, what happens when in reality I have a boss and a spouse and I have kids and I have other people who demand my time, that schedule gets blown to bits. And the reason it gets blown to bits is because we don't do what's called a schedule sync. Here's what a schedule sync looks like. Let me destroy yet another piece of bad productivity advice, which is we've all heard that, if you want to stay focused, if you want to be productive, the best thing you can do is learn how to say no. Right? Haven't we all heard this advice? Learn how to say no to people. What kind of stupid advice is that, Lewis? You're going to look at your boss, the guy who pays, or the guy or gal who pays your bills, and you're going to tell them, you know what, boss? No. Are you serious? Who would give that kind of advice? If you've actually had a job, you know you can't tell your boss no. You'll get fired. So instead of telling your boss no, what you're going to do instead is to say, hey, boss, look, can we sit down once a week? Okay, Monday morning. It's going to take 15 minutes max. And you're going to show them your schedule. Okay, now that you've made a time box schedule, you're going to show them, right? You have a physical artifact you can share with them. And you say, hey, boss, here's my schedule for the week. Here's all the stuff I'm doing, okay, per the priorities at work. Okay, here's how I'm spending my time during the workday. Now, you see this other list here? Okay, I wrote down on this other list here on this piece of paper all the stuff I couldn't fit into my schedule for the week. Can you help me reprioritize? That's your boss's number one job, okay? A boss's job, number one, is to prioritize.
Yeah, what's the most important thing right now that you need me to do?
Exactly.
And can you have someone else support with these other tasks? Can we delegate to some other things if you want me to do this right now?
Absolutely. So if you say, look, if there's something on this list that's not in my calendar, no problem. What should I swap out?
Right.
Help me understand
Time
how to
syncing.
reprioritize. Exactly. Schedule syncing, right. Doing that
Schedule syncing.
synchronization so that, exactly. So that, and let me tell you, your boss will worship the ground you walk on. I've started 2 startups. Most bosses have no idea how their employees are spending their time.
Zero.
No idea.
We are hiring more and more people, and luckily we're pretty good at it because we use Slack and Monday.com, so we have projects that are managed and project managers and all that. But I'm not looking in those things, so I have no idea actually what's being done unless I ask my project manager or my COO and say, are people even working today? I don't even know. So it's luckily we have some of those tools. But if you were like, hey, this is my calendar for the week, the things that I'm planning to create this week,
time boxed.
And you were like, hey, what can we eliminate or how can I delegate this? Then I'm sure it would make that person pretty excited.
Right, or reprioritize. Or here's the thing, the boss is thinking, what the heck are people doing all day, right? Why aren't things happening faster? Employees are thinking, oh my God, doesn't my boss know how much is on my plate right now?
Right.
Right?
I'm overwhelmed, I'm overworked. Yeah.
Exactly. And this, of course, because there's no visibility into our schedules. And I'm telling you, it's 10 minutes a week. It's 15 minutes max. If you sit down and say, here's my schedule, okay, here's how I plan to spend my time, help me reprioritize. If you do this, your boss will say, actually, you know what, that one thing, you really don't need to be at that meeting, but that other thing is super important. Can we swap that out? This is how we get on the same page. This is how we synchronize our schedules. We can do this with our boss. We can do this with our spouses. Let me tell you, my wife and I used to get in so many fights because of household responsibilities, right? Because of misunderstandings of, I thought you were going to do this and I thought you were going to do that. Now we sit down, and now we involve my daughter too. We do it every week. The 3 of us sit down together and we synchronize our schedules. Miraculous. It's amazing how much better it's made our life.
Yeah, it's clarity.
Oh, I have a short attention span, or I'm bad with time management, or hey, you know what, I probably need some kind of diagnosis. It's all ridiculous. For the vast majority of people, there's nothing wrong with them, right? They just reinforce this crappy self-image of someone who's incapable when they are perfectly capable if they had the right techniques.